Welcome to Storytime with Cozy Malka, where we gather to share tales about responsibility, courage, and honesty. As we come together, let's put on our listening ears as we're transported into amazing stories. For this episode, we'll be learning about bravery versus injustice as we continue our tale about that clever rogue Robin Hood and his merry men. Without further ado, let's find a cozy spot, grab a friend, and let's enjoy a great story. All right, we're continuing our story with Chapter 17, The Game of Buffets. Within a week of their return from the burning of Evilhold, Robin Hood and his men feasted right merrily, with Marian to grace their table. They had repaired the damage wrought by Isambard in their secret glade, for the Baron's men had overlooked the two caves in which most of the outlaws' stores were kept, and had done little beyond burning the huts in the glade, since they were in a hurry to carry off Marian before Robin and the greater part of his men could fall on them. The men wounded in the fight, and the pirate in what is now called Robin Hood's Bay, were beginning to come back from Ravenscar, and were all eager to prepare for a winter of comfort in the forest depths, when Robin heard that Abbot Hugo of St. Mary's intended to visit his brother at Nottingham. News had reached the Sherwood Forest that Sir Richard returned to the Abbey to reclaim his land, bringing with him an unidentified palmer. There he found the abbot with the king's justiciary. Abbot Hugo was outraged when Sir Richard laid down 2 bags filled with the 700 gold marks to pay his bond. But the true surprise came when the palmer revealed himself as King Richard, who promised to bring the abbot to trial for the unjust imprisonment of Sir Richard. Since his place as abbot is in danger, he will surely take at least part of his hoard with him, and he will try to lay up a store against the tie when King Richard comes back to right Abbot Hugo's wrong against Sir Richard. Robin commented, "I would that I had been in the hall to see our king beard the abbot and tell him the truth about himself." On a clear autumn day, when the brown leaves fluttered down in the forest, Hugo went his way towards Nottingham with 3 friars in attendance. The Guy of Gisborne, with all the men at arms the abbey could furnish to guard them. Guy with 10 men led the way, and then came the abbot riding, with 6 men leading heavily laden baggage mules, and the 3 friars on foot, and behind these, as rear guards, were another 10 men at arms. A merchant begged the protection of their escort, and the abbot graciously allowed him to join the party as they entered the forest itself. They had just crossed an open glen when Robinson's men fell on them so suddenly that the whole struggle was over almost as soon as it had begun. Guy of Gisborne said that his horse bolted with him, but whether his spurs helped it was never known, though he and his 10 men were outnumbered 3 to 1, while the rear guard, seeing men swarming between them and the abbot in front, took to their heels without a blow. So great was their fear, the outlaws. Why did they even go in then? So there were left the abbot with his friars and the mules, and the merchant, who, having no goods with him, seemed very little disturbed, but pulled his hood down over his face and waited on events. "Greeting, Hugo," said Robin Hood. "Get down from that tall horse, and let us have a word together." Trembling with helpless rage, the abbot dismounted, and stood with his 3 monks, while Robin's men took away those who had led the mules and investigated the contents of the packs. "But a week ago, on Michaelmas Day," said Robin, "I lent 700 good gold marks to St. Mary's Abbey. It looks as if you have the goodness to repay it already by the packs on these mules." "Robbery and outrage," the abbot breathed fiercely. "Aye," Robin said, "robbery and outrage. Hark, abbot, 'tis but a fortnight since that I rescued Marian, daughter of Sir Richard at Leah, from the clutch of Isambard of Evilhold, and she sat before a parchment that Isambard would have had her sign, giving all her lands and goods to him." "I know nothing of this, outlaw," the abbot cried. "Nothing?" Robin mocked him. "What if I tell you that no man of all Isambard's men, nor Isambard himself, could draw up such a parchment? And what if I tell you further that the parchment was drawn up by your clerk in St. Mary's Abbey by your order?" "It is false," the abbot shouted. "Good Friar Tuck," Robin said, "bring that clerk here." Friar Tuck waddled out from among the trees, and the merchant turned to look at him. He led by the ear a lean-looking, miserable monk, who appeared as badly scarred as ever as he had been in his life. "Now, Abbot Hugo," Robin said, "you will surely know your own clerk. Know, too, that he hath a taste for fishing, and when he went fishing this morning, my men took him, for I needed a witness to this meeting of ours. Say now, shall he tell his tale?" Hugo shook his head. "Let him keep silence, and I will confess that I ordered the parchment to be written for Isambard," he said sulkily, for he considered that if once his clerk began to talk, there was no telling how many other evil deeds he might confess. Robin nodded in satisfaction. Now, Lord Abbot, he said, there is the matter of 700 gold marks led to St. Mary's by me, Robin Hood. I know nothing of it, Hugo interrupted. Patience. Until you will in good time, for the score against you is a long one, Robin answered. After that matter, there is the imprisonment of Sir Richard at Leah in Evilhold, for which payment must be made. I had no hand in that, Hugo cried. Friar Tuck, prod that clerk and make him talk, Robin ordered, for he was witness when Isambard the Roger and Roger the Cruel. Nay, the abbot yelled, let him keep quiet, and I will confess that too. I shared the guilt of Sir Richard's imprisonment with Isambard. The merchant, leaning against a tree with two men keeping guard over him, sighed and nodded to himself. We will save for that another 700 marks, Abbot, Robin suggested, and so you get off cheaply. I'm a ruined man, the abbot moaned. There is also the matter of certain good men I lost when I went to rescue Sir Richard's daughter Marian and burn Evilhold, Robin pursued calmly. It is, I know, the custom of such as you to leave the wives and children of such men to starve if the men are killed, but I have another mind about it. 100 gold marks to divide among the widows and fatherless children. Abbot is a small price to pay. Robbery and outrage, the abbot wailed again. The custom of fat abbots is ever robbery and outrage, Robin retorted sternly, but their sins come back on them at times. Little John, let us look at what the mules carry. Robin's men, directed by Little John, had been busy stripping the packs off the mules and laying out their contents, which were mainly bags of gold and silver coin, a service of massive silver plate, a bundle of parchment deeds, and some bales of robes and rich cloth, which the abbot had thought he would take to Nottingham to entrust to his brothers' care. Good store for a ruined man, Robin commented. Set us aside 1,500 marks in payment of the abbot's just debts, and choose us out the best bale of stuffs for the Queen of Sherwood to clothe herself for the winter. Little John and his holiness shall dance for the rest. While they counted the money and the merchant watched them silently, Robin turned to the abbot again. Now, Hugo, our Friar Tuck shall carol us a lively song, and you shall edify us by dancing to it on the turf. Strike up, friar, and let us see the holy man trip a measure. But I have rheumatism, the abbot protested. I cannot dance. I am no dancer. Oh, my wealth, my sins. This is outrage against Holy Church. It is impossible. Take an arrow apiece and prick him in the calf, Much and Scarlet. Robin bade as Friar Tuck began to bellow out a melody. We will give him a cure for his rheumatism. At the first touch of the arrow point through his robe, the abbot leapt in the air with a squeal, and presently he had gathered up his robe to clear his fat legs and was hopping and skipping like a mad rabbit. By the time Friar Tuck left off singing, the abbot was panting for want of breath, and most of Robin's men were helpless with laughter. A right good measure, abbot, Robin said gravely, and a sure cure for the rheumatism. Now take your clerk and your monks and mules and get on your way, but write no more parchments for thieving barons, nor imprison good knights, or it will go far worse when I catch you again. If it were not that our good King Richard will bring you to trial in his own time, and I trust hang you for your oppressions, I had not let you go now, but I leave you to the justice that is within the law. While the outlaw band watched the abbot's men repack his goods on the mules, Robin had one last lesson for the abbot. Thus, Hugo rode off facing backwards, his feet lashed tight against under the mule. Robin's merry men laughed even more loudly as the abbot's sorry and crestfallen gathering set off on their way. Little John called out to its chief, Ho, Robin! Here is a tall, hooded merchant still wanting our attention. Do we let him follow the abbot down to Nottingham? Not so, said Robin. How much money hath he? 40 marks, Little John answered, if the count tally with his statement when we asked him. Search him and see, Robin bade. So they took off the bag at his waist to count its contents. He tells the truth, Little John reported, while the merchant stood composed with folded arms, but he refuses to remove his cowl. That is his own affair, Robin said. Being a truthful man, we will fine him 20 marks for being in the company of a lying thief, like Abbot Hugo, and let him go. Now, by the rood, that is too much, the merchant said, and as Little John tossed the bag back at him after taking from it 20 gold marks, he took 2 quick steps forward and dealt the giant a flat-handed blow, at which he staggered and fell. A roar went out from the outlaws, and the 2 men drew their swords as Little John got to his feet. Hold, Robin Hood cried with a laugh. He had the right of it, John. Where are your manners? That you did not hand back the bag? For this is a man of substance, and no mere curl. Pick up the bag and give it to the man worth respect. He hath a good muscle, Friar Tuck said with a chuckle. Merchant, will you try a game of buffets with me? Willingly, if I knew the game, the merchant answered. A simple game, the friar assured him, coming forward. See, now you stand there, and I stand here. I give you such a buffet, probably buffet, as you gave her infant John, who is too small and weak to stand such games, and if you can get on your feet again, you might have given me one back. For Friar Tuck reckoned on avenging the mighty blow his friend had suffered. Strike then, said the merchant, for I will play your game. Friar Tuck rolled back his sleeve and gave the tall merchant such a blow as had sent many a man rolling, but it did not produce even a quiver of the merchant's frame. St. Peter, but this is an iron merchant, said the friar. Now smite unless you be pegged to the ground. The merchant gave him a careless wallop, and over he went like a ninepin. He got on his feet again in a dazed way. Enough, good merchant, he said, for the church is overthrown, but by the ringing in my head the bells are sound enough. My turn, Robin Hood said, a little netted at seeing his two strongest men felled so easily. Just then he saw through the trees a pair riding towards them. They were Mary and his wife, and her father, Sir Richard at Leah. Robin turned his back to the merchant and said, Stand for it, merchant, while I give you a buffet, and then I will take one from you. He put all his strength into his blow, and the merchant rocked on his feet a little and shook his head, as if the blow had been no light one. But to Robin's surprise, he did not fall, though no man of the band could keep on his feet after one of Robin's buffets. My turn, said the merchant, and Robin braced himself for the blow. Merchant smiled, bared his arm, and gave so stout a blow full on Robin's breast that the outlaw was hurled some feet away and almost fell to the ground. He kept his feet, however, and coming to the merchant, from whose face the cowl had dropped away by reason of the violence of his blow, he said, By sweet Virgin, but there is pith in thy arm, merchant, if merchant thou art, a stalwart man thou. At this very moment, Sir Richard at Leah leapt from his saddle, and doffing his hat, ran forward, crying, "'Tis the king! Kneel, Robin!" The knight knelt on his knees before the king, who now thrust the cowl from off his head of brown hair and revealed the handsome face and blue eyes, in which a proud but genial light shone, of Richard Coeur de Lion. Then he tore aside the black robes he wore, showing beneath a rich silk surtout blazoned with the leopards of Anjou and the fleur-de-lis of France. Robin and his outlaws kneeled at the sight. By the soul of my father, said Richard, with a gay laugh, but this is a right fair adventure. Why do you kneel, good Robin? Art thou not a king of the greenwood? My lord, the king of England, said Robin, I love thee and fear thee, and would crave thy mercy for myself and my men for all the deeds which we have done against thy laws. Of thy goodness and grace give us mercy. Rise, Robin, for by the Trinity I've never met in the greenwood a man so much after my heart as thou art, said the king. He caught Robin by the hand and lifted him to his feet. But, said King Richard, what of the stolen deer? What of the prelates of the church robbed, and the spoiling of my barons who passed this way? Why should I pardon you? Lord King, he said, if I have spoiled such as Abbot Hugo, I have but taken the spoils of a thief. If I have robbed a baron, I have done no more harm than when I plundered the long dragon boat of Damon the monk, pirate and murderer. I wronged no woman and harmed no man who lives justly. And will you be judge as to who lives justly? King Richard asked. I will be judge of what I know, Robin answered heartily, looking his king in the face, and deal justly when I have judged. I have spoiled the thieving prior to send money to your ransom, that we might have a king worth serving in England. I have made oppressors afraid of their evil deeds, and lived cleanly in the greenwood, while barons did foul things in castles. You, sire, know what manner of place was Evilhold, that a certain black knight helped my men to assault. True enough, Richard answered moodily, but what of the deer? There you have broken the laws. I confess our fault, Robin asked frankly, yet outlawed as we were, how else could we live? Sire, these men have fought with you, and not one of them but has prayed for your return to this misruled land. Grant them pardon, and do as you will with me. Nay, Robin, the king answered with a smile, all or none. Now this I will do for you. All that has been shall be forgotten, and you shall be restored, every man to his rights, while I will make you warden of Sherwood, with such men as you may choose to serve under you, and with such pay as is fitting to the place. So let it be, rejoiced the king. And is this fair lady, she who hath left honors and lands for love of thee? Fair maiden Marian cast herself upon her knees before the king, who gave her his hand to kiss, after which he raised her to her feet. Come, said the king, thou hast given up much to come to thy good Archer, fair lady. I can only agree that thou hast chosen a man brave and bold. Thou wert moored of mine, and I give thee willingly, where thou hast already given thyself. So saying, the king joined the hands of Robin and Marian, both of whom felt very happy in having the king himself pardon them for so wilfully acting against his rights. Now all, said Robin, cheer you, good king, for never has this England known such a king and fighter as our King Richard. They responded with cheers that rang out to the forest echoed, and Abbot Hugo, riding down towards Nottingham, forgot to curse over the loss of his gold, while he spurned on at such a pace that his followers could hardly keep up with him. Friar Tuck led forward the supposed merchant's horse for him to mount. Lord King, he said, I would that you had time to dine with us. Now we are no longer outlaws, for then you might let fall some word that would teach me the secret of the blow that felled me. Let us at least give you escort to Nottingham, Robin urged. But King Richard shook his head. I travel alone and fast on my way to France, he answered. See that you brave men do loyally and touch the deer no more, for this night a free pardon for you will lie in the hands of Robert de Renault of Nottingham, and your in-laws in-lawing shall be cried in every town in the country. So fare you well, Warden of Sherwood, and see that you do your duty till I come again. And with a wave of his hand, King Richard rode away, leaving them all standing bareheaded in the forest glen. Then with a sigh, Little John turned to his leader. Well, where now, Robin? He asked, since our good days are done. Nay, said Robin, for such as will may keep with me in our secret glade, and who keeps count of the game in Sherwood so well as the warden of the forest. So many heads are my right each year, and we will have them. While since we are rich men with the loot from Damon's ship and other small things that we have won, anyone who will may hire him land or take to the towns, but the greenwood for me. A score of them elected to leave the band and settle down, but the rest kept to their leader, and went with him to receive from the sheriff of Nottingham the parchment deed to their pardon. There was many a smile among them as Robert de Renault's sour face as he handed the deed to Robin, for he had far rather hanged his enemy. Thank you for joining us for Storytime with Cozy Malka. We'd love for you to share with our friends what you learned from tonight's tale. Join us next time for the continuing adventures of Robin Hood.